Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Lewicki. Tensions are on the rise between Hungary and Ukraine, following accusations of unauthorized drone flights over Ukraine's Transcarpathia region. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has openly questioned Ukraine's status as a sovereign country, with other unfriendly moves, such as mutual blocking of news websites, highlighting the deteriorating atmosphere between the neighbors. Can Hungary take its feud with Kiev further, becoming even more stubborn and opposing Ukraine aid within the European Union? Joining us now is András László, Professor of Law at the Otfors University. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So let's begin with a quick summary when it comes to these drones. What do we know so far? Can we say with confidence that they were there with some sort of ulterior motive, that they were doing something they shouldn't be doing, as Ukraine is suggesting?
It's actually very hard to tell. The first reaction of the government was that it's impossible. It was not. It was clearly, there were no Hungarian drones. There was no military or any other type of involvement here. That was the first reaction, and then the second came a few days later when Prime Minister Orbán said that, well, what if a few drones have crossed? He actually said, what if a few drones have actually crossed the border? So what? No big deal. Ukraine is not a sovereign country, anyways. Basically, that was his argument, which, by the way, is also in somewhat of a contradiction to how generally his rhetoric is, because he actually continued with the sentence saying that, well, Ukraine is not a sovereign country. We are sustaining it, and by we. He actually referred to I would guess the European Union, whereas for most of the time in the past month, the EU has been sort of the enemy or the other, as opposed to this, Hungary with its sovereign politics, which is basically echoing, Russian policies and Russian politics. So this is as far as rhetoric goes. By the way, this is not the first time the Prime Minister has questioned the sovereignty of Ukraine. He has earlier spoke about a territory called Ukraine, which again is clearly questioning the actual sovereignty of the country. But I think this is I wouldn't think or I wouldn't see, and I certainly don't see a policy or a political strategy behind this, or even commitments to escalate the conflict. I think Prime Minister Orbán's that has been his main rhetorical and political stance in the past few months, to posit the European Union, especially in its capacity to how to deal with the war in Ukraine, and as the primary other, in opposition to which he could define his policies, and Ukraine on the other. So the two enemies, the two others, were Ukraine and the EU. And I think this has been going on for quite a few months now. So I don't see anything new here. I don't see anything new in echoing Russian propaganda and echoing official Russian policy and political priorities. So I don't see anything new here. What is new is that the campaign for the 2026 spring elections is nearing, and so the campaign is getting harsher and sharper and more aggressive. So I think this is behind this.
Shouldn't we be concerned, nevertheless, when we see the Prime Minister of a European Union member state essentially repeating at least two or perhaps even three major talking points from the Kremlin, one of them being Ukraine is not a real state, not independent, not sovereign. Then we saw a part of the social media video playing in the background where essentially Mr. Orban was also using this sort of proxy war trope, like, Ukraine doesn't really exist because it is simply simply an arena for the interests of Western countries to play? And finally, also this suggestion, again, which is something that has been seen in Russian propaganda quite frequently, the petitioning of Ukraine, that Western countries, Russia often accuses Poland of secretly harboring some sort of plan to take away the western part of Ukraine, which is not true. And now Mr. Orban is also repeating that, suggesting Western countries want to petition Ukraine, Russia took 20%, so they want to take the rest. All of that reflecting the Kremlin talking points so closely. Shouldn't this be a major cause for concern?
Well, I am a constitutional lawyer and not a political analyst and not a political participant. So what's cause for concern is I have my obvious personal feelings about this. But I mean, the thing is, this hasn't changed. This has only become more articulate and more extreme. I mean, the Orban government has basically been a policy and a speech I guess fortress for Russia for a very long time. I mean, going as far as it can go for blocking sanctions against Russia, echoing everything that's Russian propaganda. So this clearly has been the case for quite a while.
So let's take a look at the legal side of things, because the European Union clearly has a problem. Narratives aside, we've seen Mr. Orban opposing, for example, the commencement of negotiations on EU membership for Ukraine. And now apparently there are plans to try and get rid, at least partially, of unanimity here, instead that you would have majority voting on opening individual clusters, so that this process can get underway, at least until perhaps there is elections in Hungary might actually change the calculus here. Do you think this is going to work, like trying to go around this unanimity principle with respect to beginning these negotiations?
Well, that's to be seen. I mean, two things here. One is that Orban, so I think what Orban is primarily interested in is Hungarian domestic politics, again, with the elections coming up, with a very powerful contender who is actually leading the polls for the first time in 15 years. Not only is there a potent contender, but actually someone who's leading the polls. So his main rhetoric was this dichotomy of war and peace, basically saying the EU, this is something he said this weekend, or this week, is that, well, the EU wants a war against Russia, and this is the EU policy. And Hungary should not be part of this. That's basically his domestic focused rhetoric. This is and war and peace, and the EU as well as Ukraine being responsible for the war and they wanting the war. So that's just what apparently the spin doctors. That's apparently what his party's propaganda, what his party's electoral campaign is built on. So I don't think that is going to is likely to change. What is the other side of the story is that so far, and this is something he characterized his politics and policies for a long time, which is referred to as a peacock dance. So the peacock is this very attractive animal dancing around, moving between the two sides. So it's basically saying one thing and then also making some commitments for the one side and also for the other. So I think what he's trying to do, I mean, for now, most of when it really came to important breaking point, Orban has always voted with the EU, or has is left to get a coffee when the commission was or when the committee was and the council there were some votes. So far he only went as far as to represent Russian interest as he could go, and at some point he was willing to go forward with the strongly articulate European message. So we'll see, how far this blocking and vetoing can go, and also how far the EU can go in terms of trying to go against the unanimity requirement for decision making. And also what we've seen now is that the EU has also offered to defreeze, or at least to wire some of the EU funds, the money that has been withheld due to rule of law concerns to Hungary, if this deal is to proceed somehow. So I think Orban has been extremely successful in this peacock dance, and he's been extremely successful in going with when that's this is the interest for his political survivor, then he was willing to go along and abandon the loud anti-EU rhetoric, and actually go and support the vote that's that the rest of the EU member states wanted. Of course, the question is whether Fico is on his side or not in this regard. So again, but so far what we've seen is when Hungary was the only country against a unanimous EU platform, he almost always went along at the end of the day.
So, of course, it remains to be seen whether the same thing can be achieved with regards to American requests concerning the energy sector, but that perhaps is a question for another day. For now, András László was our guest today here on... András László, sorry, my mistake. Was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for being here with us today and for sharing your insight.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
And I'm András. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.